Ever heard about this thing called polar exploration? It started off as this thing that people would do to try to find, shorter trade routes to places. They'd be like, "Hey, what's up here?" People haven't really gone here before. Maybe there's a reason for that. With all the ice blocking the way and stuff. Inhospitable climate and all that. Uh, uh, and they would just go there and explore places. Pretty fun time. Sometimes not so fun time. People would die. That's not fun. Sometimes they just go missing. We don't know what would happen to them. Maybe they joined like Inuits. I don't know. They would, if you ask them. But you're not them, and neither am I. So yeah, that's why how polar exploration got started. People would just try to find shorter trade routes and make more money. Well, that's a very mm, businessman-minded approach to it. You can also just think, hey, I want to go a place. Everyone wants to go places, um, and who doesn't want to explore the unknown? That's also pretty interesting. You needn't be so cynical about everything in life like this. You can just think, hey, I wanna go and explore, or you just like cold for some reason. That's also a plus. Maybe you're just hired by a king to do it. The king feels like doing it. Um, yeah. Anyways, after a while of this, in the 15, early times is like 14, 1500s, early 1600s, then you get to like the later 1600s and the 1700s, and you know records start being set, and people would think, hey, he's a pretty reputable guy in the like in the exploration community. People would think that before too, of course, but it started taking more off now in the later 1600s, and they think, I want to go where he went, but further, and meet more challenges because that means you're a cool guy. So they'd go places with their ships. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that polar exploration up to this point was basically just ships sailing. After a while, it started being a combination of ships sailing and skiing and sledding and stuff. At one, once you get far enough, even flying. But for now, it was only boat driven, into the northern seas, and people would, in the later 1600s, they'd see, oh, yeah, I want to do that the thing that guy did, but better, better in every way, and that's what happened. They went there and did that kind of stuff. After a while, though, after a while, of this, more and more prestige started building up around it, and there was, with the advent of academia and more people being able to read, right, people would read stuff about this and care, and they'd know about the people who did this. Then they'd be more respected, got more and more prestige around it. Eventually it became like a thing, once nationalism really took off, it would become a thing about national pride too. Our country did this thing, your country didn't. We beat you in this particular race to this particular thing. Maybe it's being the furthest north, maybe it's, finding or reaching a particular location. I did a whole thing about the Northwest Passage. Um, it's pretty cool. And also around, the time that, the 1700s, late 1600s, kings and emperors even started to commission explorers to just do it because they wanted to see, a charted area of their empire that hadn't been charted before. Uh, they wanted accurate maps to see what they really ruled, and they also wanted to, like borders and stuff to settle it with other countries if they were way in the north. With well, now we're entering the 1800s with let's say Alaska, um, for example. You need to settle that with someone, so it needs to be charted. And yeah, we've reached the thing about national pride again in the 1800s. That's when it really got going. In the early 1800s, had a lot of downfalls. Because I've kind of touched upon this before. Polar exploration is not really really the safest thing to do. It's quite dangerous, really, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Whether it be the climate that kills you, whether it be sickness like scurvy and stuff, um, or maybe you just like capsize and get lost and never make it back. That's also a possibility. Um, so there's a lot of reasons why it's very dangerous to do. Not least because you don't, have a charted map of the area already. That's why it's called polar exploration. So yeah, a lot of dangerous things, and in the early 1800s, a lot of people died from this. Particularly with the Franklin expedition, that's big example. And this is also when start standing navies were a thing before this. Of course, you had more polar exploration before this, but uh, how do you say, navies just got bigger and more technologically advanced. They could just do more things with them, while they were like while the country were at peace. So that, in addition to the national pride thing, just skyrocketed polar exploration. But now, when we reach the mid 1800s, it's not just ships anymore. Now you get like, oh, what Nansen, went on skis across Greenland. That's pretty impressive, right? Um, more skis and sleds. Uh, Aeroplanes will not be invented for another 50 years, though. So that's a bit far off for now. But yeah, they did things, and they skied and sledded. That's what they did. To the north and South Pole, not yet. The South Pole only got discovered, in the early 1800s. You can't really enter the continent proper yet. No one had really tried to do that in the mid 1800s. Um, there had certainly been attempts to chart it. Big boy. Captain Ross, not not John Ross, but uh, something Ross instead, and uh, Francis Crozier. Those two, Francis Crozier is a really good captain. He was on the Franklin expedition as well, and he died. But he charted part of Antarctica as well. Before that, so that was pretty cool. Mm, Also, uh, yeah. So skis and sleds. And up until this point, people had gathered information about the Inuit, and people had taken their knowledge into account, but they still had kind of, a pompous attitude towards them, whether they be English, Danish, Norwegian, French, whatever, those kinds of people that explored the North and the South Seas. They'd see the natives and be like, you hold valuable information about the land, but, in the end, we know more about the world through science than you do. Or you are a savage, you're a heathen. You obviously don't know the way of God. We know more than you, which I think is less understandable than the one about we know more scientifically about the world than you. But hey, that's neither here nor there. In the mid to late 1800s, people would now start seeing the Inuit and be like, instead of thinking we know more about the world than you, hence you have valuable information, but we hold the last say. they'd start to think, hey, wait, maybe, you know, we already know more about this than we do. Why should we think we are better suited for this than you are? And so people started wearing, um, animal skins, for example. More people in polar exploration started wearing animal skins because they were more isolating towards cold, and also sledding. Uh, how to properly sled with dogs. People um, had sleds before this, whether it be in boat form or actually an actual sled. But they hadn't used dogs for them, and they hadn't taken Inuit knowledge into account when using it, and so they were just pretty cool, pretty cool, pretty cool. So yeah, more things were successful because of that. You have, as I said, Nansen getting across Greenland on just skis. That's pretty impressive. You have the first ever wintering in Antarctica. Not that everyone there on the Belgian ship had, experience from the Inuit, but you know, with the thought of the time, it did contribute to them making it. Um, and also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Amundsen. He was the big Inuit guy. He was the big, I learn from the Inuit. Everything I do is owed to the Inuit. There was also that Danish explorer guy, badass, dug himself out of like he was buried in snow, and he dug himself out with his own poop because that was the only when he pooped it became solid pretty fast because of the freezing temperature, and so that was the only thing he had that he could use to dig himself out of the snow that was on top of him after either a storm or an avalanche. That was pretty cool. He's a pretty badass guy. um those are the biggest polar people who did the Inuit thing. You know, um, taking everything you know about polar exploration from the Inuit. I mean, not the measurements and the scientific things. Those are still heavily European, of course, because the Inuit didn't have use for that, or they of- eh, maybe they did, but it wasn't strictly necessary. You have around this time, I said again, a national feeling around the polar exploration. You have Norway, for example, newly independent, proving itself with exploring the Arctic and the Antarctic a lot to be to to build national pride and show itself. Yeah, we're a proper nation. We can do this. And you also have the Brits, doing their thing with having a large empire, being like, we are the greatest in the world. We need to be the greatest in everything. Uh, like, you could say those are, the two main players of the late 1800s, early 1900s in polar exploration. I could just say, all of Scandinavia is one because the first expedition that sailed through the Northeast Passage was Swedish, and that badass Danish guy, I don't remember his name. Those are pretty cool as well. But really, Norway did a lot more than them. The Swedes tried, uh, in with the advent of air travel, with traveling through air, whether it be through aeroplane or air balloon. The Swedes tried reaching the North Pole with a hot air balloon. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. They crashed in like the middle of the Arctic Sea. you know, Up there on the North Pole somewhere. Not on the North Pole, because then they'd be the first ones to get there. And um, but the reason we know this is because, their bodies and their camp was recovered, and uh, a lot of time later, maybe like 40, 30 years, I don't remember. And then they processed the pictures, and you could see their last moments. You could see the aero balloon just lying on the ice, just an utter failure to polar exploration. And with the advent of picture technology, polar exploration became, and still, is a lot more. You can feel it a lot more when it's one thing. Excuse me. It's one thing seeing paintings of the Franklin expedition, but it's another thing seeing, the broken faces of the men who reached the South Pole after the Norwegian team, seeing the Norwegian flag and thinking, oh no, we didn't make it in time, and then knowing that they later would all go on to die on their journey back, while all of the Norwegians were just fine and, you know, set a record, made it, were the first ones to the pole, did a big prestigious thing. That, there's a lot of emotion in it, I think, with pictures. You can get a lot more out of them than just paintings. Paintings are more expressive, of course, you know, but to document things, paintings aren't as both detailed, and they don't connect you as much as a picture would, in my opinion at least. That's how I feel about it when I reach like the early 1900s, late 1800s, and see the pictures, and it's, oh my doge, that's like a guy there, and he's doing stuff. I'm a guy, and I'm doing stuff. Wow. Because in paintings, it's a lot more about the uh, about the environment, because an artist will look at something beautiful and think, hey, that's beautiful. I wanna showcase its beauty. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just don't get the connection with the people, I think. You know, you may be more connected to the landscape and think, oh, I want to go there someday, or see the ship and think, oh, this period had some nice looking boats and ships and crafts in general. But emotionally, to the people who were there, you don't really get as connected, I think. Um, you can still do it through the environment. You get connected to what they felt through the environment, but uh, that's beside the point. Now people in general could feel more connected to what's happening, as well as this new national thing, a national pride connected to it, and that's that was pretty cool. Um, because of this national pride, you had the race for the South Pole that I just talked about. The Norwegians won, the British lost. You had the race for like other prestigious things like the Northeast Passage, which the Swedish were the first to sail through, and the Northwest Passage, which the Norwegians were the first to sail through, and the North Pole, which the Americans might have been the first to make it to, you know, um, but that's very debatable. None of the parts who went to the North Pole really, have very good evidence that they did. Out of there were like two Americans who wanted to make it to the North Pole first, and one of them is officially recognized as the first one, or not officially recognized by anyone really, but he's broadly recognized as the first one who made it. His name was Peary, and he's recognized because he handed his papers, which was still, not really, enough to say he made it. He should have done. If he really got there, he should have done more. He should have recorded a lot more than he did, and gotten, more measurements right. But oh well. But he handed it over to an organization that he worked for. Whereas the guy, the American who made it before him, a couple of months before him, or maybe a year, I'm not remembering right here. But regardless, another American supposedly made it before Peary. But he handed it over to a neutral source, which was the Copenhagen Institute of Science or something, and they didn't accept him. And looking at both of their records, the things that they recorded when they were at the pole, both seem equally as valid. So, I'm not saying that they're both valid, because I don't really believe any of them made it to the North Pole first. Uh, I'm just saying that they are both equally invalid, even though like one of the institutions recognized Peary. The first, this is where we get into aeroplane stuff, because the first man who we know made it to the North Pole was the same Norwegian who made it to the South Pole and sailed through the Northwest Passage. Roald Amundsen, he flew over the North Pole. He had the accurate measurements, He had, I don't know if he had pictures, I don't think he had pictures, but he flew over it in an airplane. And he did record stuff, and he sent it to another neutral source, and they were like, hey, yeah, this is good. So the Norwegians may have arguably taken that as well. Um, the North Pole, I mean, not like claimed it. No one can claim the North Pole. It's not a landmass, unlike those other islands that were claimed by Norwegians in the north of Canada, which the king refused to accept because he didn't want to start a feud with the United Kingdom, which I understand. I really do understand that. Um, yeah, yeah. And so we've gotten to aeroplane technology, and now you start to see more nations that didn't really have as good connections with the North and the South Arctic, the Arctic and the Antarctic, like Norway, like Britain, like Sweden, like Denmark, um, arguably even America and Russia. Of course Russia, but arguably America because they had Alaska. Um, so these were really the major players in the North and the South. Just polar exploration in general until now. But now with the advent of aeroplanes, you start getting more people, more countries. I mean, uh, you know, gain easier access to these places. So not that they couldn't have that before. As I said, there was a Belgian expedition which was the first to winter in Antarctica. They don't really have like a that connection with the polar seas and the polar areas in general, as other countries might more naturally have. Um, because ships got better during the 1800s. You got more iron plating. Steamships didn't really need sailing anymore. Everything just got better. Even engines for ships as well. Everything got better with ships, so more countries could do this. Um, but suddenly with airplanes, it didn't really matter if you had a coastline or if you even had like if you had the coastline, if you had an easy way to get to the pole, because Belgium has an easy way, from the west coast of Europe, to the major to the Atlantic, which could get you either way. But places like Italy, which are more isolated in their geography, just within the Mediterranean, I mean, uh, could now, they sent an airship to the North Pole, or they wanted to, but it crashed and that they were rescued. And they did get rescued. I think someone died before they got rescued, but I don't really remember. There's a film called The Red Tent about this. I haven't seen that film. I just know it exists. Yeah, that's we're this is in the 30s now. We've really gotten to like modern day stuff. All the polar things have been found. Anyone can now go explore. Everything has been explored, but anyone can now go and go to the poles, go anywhere. There are cruise ships taking you through the Northwest Passage to see famous sites like the graves of people who died like on their way through it. Uh, so really anyone can do it now, and it's modern day. That's really all I have to say about polar exploration now that everything's been explored. This is a pretty neat topic, I think. Pretty neat topic in history of things, because I don't know, it's just neat. It shows like a clear progression, and you don't really need to view it through a narrative for it to be a progression, because it's just objectively progressing, finding more things, getting better equipment and all that. Or I guess better can be subjective. Some things might look nicer, some older things might look nicer. But more functional in the seas, more functional in the Arctic seas, all that. Um, but yeah, as I said, we reached the modern day polar exploration. Everything's been explored. It's all over now. So that's it's a neat topic, I think. And if you find it interesting, anything of what I've said interesting, either here or in my big Northwest Passage video, then you should really look into it. It's a very interesting and neat topic. Um, that's all. See you around, I suppose. Goodbye.
But sing, sing, we're on our way home, across the Pacific, through the unknown, with God